Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. This is WireDogSec back with another video for you guys. Today's video, we are going to continue on with TryHackMe. This is the Junior Penetration Tester learning path. This is the network security module in the Protocols and Servers 2 room. Learn about attacks against passwords and clear text traffic. Explore options for mitigation via SSH and SSL/TLS. Let's go ahead and jump into it, folks. Task 1. Introduction. The protocols and servers room covered many protocols, such as the ones listed here: Telnet, HTTP, FTP, SMTP, POP3, IMAP. Servers implementing these protocols are subject to different kinds of attacks. To name a few, consider the following. Number 1, sniffing attack, network packet capture. Number 2, man in the middle, also known as MITM or MITM attack. Number 3, password attack, authentication attack. Number 4, vulnerabilities. From a security perspective, we always need to think about what we aim to protect. Consider the security triad: confidentiality, integrity, and availability, also known as CIA. Confidentiality refers to keeping the contents of the communications accessible to the intended parties. Integrity is the idea of ensuring any data sent is accurate, consistent, and complete when reaching its destination. Finally, availability refers to being able to access the service when we need it. Different parties will put varying emphasis on these three. For instance, confidentiality would be the highest priority for an intelligence agency. Online banking will put most emphasis on the integrity of transactions. Availability is of the highest importance for any platform making money by serving ads. Knowing that we are protecting the confidentiality, integrity, and availability, an attack aims to cause disclosure, alteration, and destruction, also known as DAD or DAD. The figure below reflects this, and you can see a closer look here. So they're opposites of each other. Let's continue on here. These attacks directly affect the security of the system. For instance, network packet capture violates confidentiality and leads to disclosure of information. A successful password attack can also lead to disclosure. On the other hand, a MITM attack breaks the system's integrity as it can alter the communicated data. We will focus on these three attacks in this room, as these attacks are integral to the protocol design and server implementation. Vulnerabilities are of a broader spectrum, and exploited vulnerabilities have different impacts on the target systems. For instance, exploiting a DOS or denial of service vulnerability can affect the system's availability, while exploiting a RCE or remote code execution vulnerability can lead to more severe damages. It is important to note that a vulnerability by itself creates a risk. Damage can occur only when the vulnerability is exploited. We don't cover vulnerabilities in this room, as they have their own module of vulnerability research. This room will focus on how a protocol can be upgraded or replaced to protect against disclosure and alteration, i.e., protecting the confidentiality and integrity of the transmitted data. We will recommend we will be recommending other modules that cover additional topics. Moreover, we introduce Hydra to find weak passwords. And make sure to start the attack box to follow along if you're following along. All right, task number 2, we're going to talk about sniffing attack. And let's see what they have. Sniffing attack refers to using a network packet capture tool to collect information about the target. When a protocol communicates in clear text, the data exchange can be captured by a third party to analyze. A simple network packet capture can reveal information such as the content of private messages and login credentials if the data is not encrypted in transit. A sniffing attack can be conducted using an Ethernet network card, provided that the user has proper permissions, root permissions on Linux, and administrator privileges on Microsoft Windows. There are many programs available to capture network packets. We consider the following. Number 1, TCP dump, a free open source command line interface CLI program that has been ported to work on many operating systems. Wireshark is a free open source graphical program available for several operating systems, including Linux, Mac OS, and Microsoft Windows. T-Shark is a CLI alternative to Wireshark. There are several specialized tools for capturing passwords and even complete messages. However, this can still be achieved by TCP dump and Wireshark with some added effort. Consider a user checking his email messages using POP3. First, we are going to use TCP dump to attempt to capture the username and password. In the terminal below, we can use the command sudo TCP port 110-A. Before explaining this command, we should mention that this attack requires access to the network traffic, for example, via a wiretap or a switch with port mirroring. Alternatively, we can access the traffic exchange if we launch a successful man-in-the-middle attack. We need to do sudo as packet capture require root privileges. We want it to limit the number of captured and display packets to those exchanged with the POP3 server. We know that POP3 uses port 110, so we filtered our packets using port 110. Finally, we wanted to display the contents of the capture packets in ASCII format, so we added the -A. And since I am already running as root, I can just copy and paste this over here and see if we get any results back. If not, we can take a look at what they have over here. And you can see we're getting some information here. So let's go ahead and continue on, see what they have for us down here. And the terminal output above, we have removed the unimportant packets to help you better focus on the ones that matter. In particular, the username and password were each sent in their own packet. The first packet explicitly displays user Frank, while the last packet reveals the password pass and then the password. We could also use Wireshark to achieve the same results. In the Wireshark window below, we can see that we have entered POP in the filter field. Now that we filtered just the traffic we're interested in, we can see a username and password were captured, and we can see that here as a closer look. All right, so let's go ahead and see what else they have. In brief, any protocol that uses clear text communication is susceptible to this kind of attack. The only requirement for this attack to succeed is to have access to a system between the two communicating systems. This attack requires attention. The mitigation lies in adding an encryption layer on top of any network protocol. In particular, transport layer security, also known as TLS, has been added to HTTP, FTP, SMTP, POP3, IMAP, and many others. For remote access, Telnet has been replaced by the secure alternative Secure Shell, which is SSH. If you would like to learn more about Wireshark, we recommend the Wireshark 101 room. So be sure to check out this room if you want to get familiar with Wireshark, or you can just search my channel for these Wireshark videos. Now, answer and question time. What do we need to add to the command sudo tcp dump to capture only telnet traffic? Hey everybody, just a quick little blurb here. As you can see here, most people that view my channel are not subscribers. If you're new here, please consider subscribing to the channel. If you're enjoying the video, please consider hitting the like button. It helps get me in the algorithm, helps spread the good word out there, helps bring more people and increase our glorious community here. All right, I'm all about helping out others. I know what it's like to come up in cybersecurity or even try to get into cybersecurity and not knowing where to look. I'm just having this channel up so I can help out other people. All right, that's all I got. As we can see from my input over here, TCP dump port 110, all you need in here is to put in port and then the port number of whatever you're looking for. In this case, Telnet. Telnet's running on 23 by default, so that's the answer, port 23. The next one is, what is the simplest display filter you can use with Wireshark IMAP traffic? Well, as discussed above, when they were looking for POP stuff, right? They just typed in POP, so you're just going to type in IMAP. And let's continue with task number 3, man in the middle attack. See what they say. A middle attack occurs when a victim A believes they are communicating with a legitimate destination B, but is unknowingly communicating with an attacker E. In the figure below, we have A requesting the transfer of $20 to M. However, E altered this message and replaced the original value with the new one. B received the modified message and acted upon it. And you can see that here. They changed it to $2,000, looks like. Let's continue. This attack is relatively simple to carry out if the two parties do not confirm the authenticity and integrity of each message. In some cases, the chosen protocol does not provide secure authentication or integrity checking. Moreover, some protocols have internet or inherent insecurities that make them susceptible to this kind of attack. Anytime you browse over HTTP, you are susceptible to middle attack, and the scary thing is that you cannot recognize it. Many tools would aid in you carrying out such an attack, such as EtherCap and BetterCap. Minim can also affect other clear text protocols such as FTP, SMTP, and POP3. Mitigation against this attack requires the use of cryptography. The solution lies in proper authentication along with encryption or signing of the exchange messages with the help of public key infrastructure (PKI) and trusted root certificates. Transport layer security (TLS) protects from minimum attacks. How many different interfaces does EtherCap offer, and then in how many ways can you invoke EtherCap? All right, so it looks like you're gonna have to do some outside research on EtherCap. So be sure to check that out and then come back to the video for the solutions. All right, and you should get 3 for both of these answers here. And let's go ahead and continue on here to task number 4, transport layer security (TLS). In this task, we learned about a standard solution to protect the confidentiality and integrity of the exchange packets. The following approach can protect against password sniffing and minimum attacks. SSL Secure Sockets Layer started when the World Wide Web started to see new applications such as online shopping and sending payment information. Netscape introduced SSL in 1994, yada yada yada. Okay, so it's just the history of SSL if you're interested in that. Then eventually it moved over to TLS. All right, so SSL is no longer secure anymore. You should be using TLS version, the latest version of TLS, more than likely. Then it goes over the OSI model stuff here. So be sure to read through here to understand this stuff. And it says because the close relation between SSL and TLS, one might be used instead of the other. However, TLS is more secure than SSL, and it has practically replaced SSL. We could have dropped SSL and just written TLS instead of SSL/TLS, but we will continue to mention the two to avoid any ambiguity because the term SSL is still in use. However, we can expect all modern servers to be using TLS. An existing cleartext protocol can be upgraded to use encryption via SSL/TLS. We can use TLS to upgrade HTTP, FTP, etc., etc. The following table lists the protocols we have covered and their default ports before and after the encryption upgrade via SSL/TLS. The list is not exhaustive. However, the purpose is to help us better understand the process, and that's what the table looks like here. All right, I'm not going to read through all this, but just to look over some of them here. HTTP default port is 80, and the secured version of it is HTTPS, and that runs on port 443 by default. FTP 21, FTPS is port 990, SMTP 25, SMTPS 465, and then et cetera, et cetera. This should be STS FTP actually. I believe that's a better secured version of FTP. But let's continue on. Considering the case of HTTP, initially to retrieve a message, a web page over HTTP, the web browser would need to perform the following 2 steps: establish TCP connection with the remote server, send HTTP requests to the web server, such as GET and POST requests. HTTPS requires an additional step to encrypt the traffic. The next step takes place after establishing a TCP connection and before sending HTTP request. This extra step can be inferred from the ISO/OSI model in the image presented earlier. Consequently, HTTPS requires at least the following 3 steps. Number 1, establishing a TCP connection. Number 2, establishing a SSL/TLS connection. Number 3, send the HTTP request to the web server. To establish a SSL TLS connection, the client needs to perform the proper handshake with the server based on RFC 6101. The SSL connection establishment will look like the figure below. And this is what it looks like. After establishing a TCP connection with the server, the client establishes a SSL TLS connection as shown in the figure above. The terms might look complicated depending on your knowledge of cryptography, but we can simplify the 4 steps as the following here. Number 1, the client sends a client hello to the server to indicate its capabilities, such as supported algorithms. Number 2, the server responds with a server hello, indicating the selected connection parameters. The server provides its certificate if server authentication is required. The certificate is a digital file to identify itself. It is usually digitally signed by a third party. Moreover, it might send additional information necessary to generate the master key in the server key exchange message before sending the server hello done message to indicate that it is done with the negotiation. Number 3, the client responds with a client key exchange, which contains additional information and generate required to generate the master key. Furthermore, it switches to use encryption and informs the server using the change cipher spec message. Step 4, the server switches to use encryption as well and informs the client in the change cipher spec message. If these if this still sounds sophisticated, don't worry. We only need the gist of it. A client was able to agree on a secret key with a server that has a public certificate. The secret key was securely generated so that a third party monitoring the channel won't be able to discover it. Further, communication between the client and the server will be encrypted using the generated key. Consequently, once an SSL-TLS handshake has been established, HTTP request and exchange data won't be accessible to anyone watching the communication channel. As a final note, for SSL-TLS to be effective, especially when browsing the web over HTTPS, we rely on public certificates signed by the certificate authorities trusted by our systems. In other words, when we browse to TryHackMe, over HTTPS, our browser expects the TryHackMe web server to provide a signed certificate from a trusted certificate authority, as per the example below. This way, our browser ensures that it is communicating with the correct server and a middleman attack cannot occur. And that's what that looks like here. You can see this for any site that's using like a TLS certificate. You should be able to see this information in there. And in the figure above, we can see the following information. One, to whom the certificate is issued, the name of the company that will use the certificate. Two, who issued the certificate. This is the certificate authority that issued the certificate. Three, validity period. You don't want to use a certificate that has expired, for instance. Luckily, we don't have to check the certificate manually for every site we visit. Our web browser will do it for us. Our web browser will ensure that we are talking with the correct server and ensure our communication is secure thanks to the server's certificate. DNS can also be secured using TLS. What is the three-letter acronym for DNS protocol that uses TLS? Now, you'll have to do some outside research as well. But once you do that, come back to the video to see the correct answer. Now, if you've done your research on Google, you will come to find out that the answer will be DOT or DNS over TLS for the secure version. Task number 5, we're going to talk about Secure Shell SSH, and let's get into it. Secure Shell SSH was created to provide a secure way for remote system administration. In other words, it lets you securely connect to another system over the network and execute commands on the remote system. Put simply, the S in SSH stands for secure, which can be summarized simply as 1. You can confirm the identity of the remote server. 2. Exchanged messages are encrypted and can only be decrypted by the intended recipient. 3. Both sides can detect and any modification in the messages. The above 3 points are ensured by cryptography. In more technical terms, they are part of confidentiality and integrity, made possible through the proper use of different encryption algorithms. To use SSH, you need an SSH server and an SSH client. The SSH server listens on port 22. By default, the SSH client can authenticate using the following: username, password, private, and public key. After SSH server is configured to recognize the corresponding public key. On Linux, Mac OS, and MS Windows builds after 2018, you can connect to an SSH server using the following command: SSH username at the target system. This command will try to connect to the server of the IP address right here with the login username. If an SSH server is listening on the default port, it will ask you to provide the password, which is the username, or for the username. Once authenticated, the user will have access to the target's server terminal. The terminal output below is an example of using SSH to access a Debian Linux server. And as you can see here, you got SSH, Mark is the username at the target system, which is this IP here. And then the password for that user account is right there. And let's see if we should be doing this. I'm going to copy and paste this over here. All right, cool. Now I'm going to copy and paste this password as well. And let's see if they let us in. Awesome. Cool. So we have the same results as them, it looks like. In the example above, we issued the command SSH mark at the target system IP. Then once we entered the correct password, we got access to the remote system terminal. SSH is very reliable for remote administration because our username and password were sent encrypted. Moreover, all commands we execute on the remote system will be sent over an encrypted channel. Note that if this is the first time you connect to the system, you'll need to confirm the fingerprint, which we just saw here, of the SSH server's public key to avoid man-in-the-middle attacks. As explained earlier, MIDM takes place when a malicious party E situates itself between A and B and communicates with A pretending to be B, and communicates with B pretending to be A, while A and B think they are communicating directly with each other. In this case of SSH, we don't usually have a third party to check if the public key is valid, so we need to do this manually. The attack is shown in the image below, so let's take a look here. There we go. We can use SSH to transfer files using SCP, Secure Copy Protocol, based on the SSH protocol. An example of the syntax is as follows: SCP username at target machine, home mark archive.tar.gz, and it has the squiggly line. This command will copy a file named archive.tar.gz from the remote system located in home mark directory to this squiggly line, i.e., the root of the home directory of the currently logged in user, and this is the command to get to the home directory, right, on a Linux box. Another example syntax is the following here, so take a look at that. This command will copy the backup.tar.bz2 from the local system to the directory home mark on the remote system, and that's what that looks like here. So we can, I guess, try to test this out and see if it allows us to do that here, because it looks like we're going to have some questions, but let's go ahead and read through this. As a closing note, FTP could be secured using SSL TLS by using the FTPS protocol, which uses port 990. It is worth mentioning that FTP can also be secured using SSH protocol, which is the SFTP protocol. By default, this service listens on port 22, just like SSH. See, that was what I was talking about earlier when I said SFTP. This is what I usually use, or what I've seen in environments at different organizations and such. They use SFTP. I haven't seen much of FTPS being used. But let's see about these questions here. Use SSH to connect to 10.10.154.48 as marked, which you've already done. Using uname-r, find the kernel release. So let me go ahead and clear all this junk out of here first. And uname-r, and there we go. 5.0, yada, yada, yada. So copy this over like so. And the next one says use SSH to download the file book.txt from the remote system. How many KBs did SCP display as download size? So if we go in and log in as Mark again, we can take a look here first. So we want to get this file here, this book.txt. And to do that, we're going to use the scp command. So I'm going to open up a new tab here. And if you have everything in there correctly, it should look something like this. We have scp mark at the target system, and we're navigating to that directory where this book.txt file is located. And we are transferring it to the home directory back on our machine here. As you can see, I've already done it. And it says the transfer size is 415 kilobytes. And we can take a look here and see that it's right there. So you can also cat it as well if you want to take a look at the contents. And there's a bunch of stuff in there. All right, I want to see what this one has real quick. This document. Okay, there's a lot of stuff in there. Okay, anyway, let's continue on with task number 6, password attack. And we discussed network packet captures and minimum attacks, as well as how these attacks can be mitigated using TLS and SSH. The third type of attack that we'll cover in this room is a password attack. Many protocols require you to authenticate. Authentication is proving who you claim to be. When we are using protocols such as POP3, we should not be given access to the mailbox before verifying our identity. The POP3, for example, from protocol service room is repeated below for your convenience. In this example, we are identified as the user Frank, and the server authenticated us because we provided the correct password. In other words, the password is one way to authentication. And here's what it looks like here. Remember, we took a look at this telnet stuff, doing all this banner grabbing and stuff like that. And let's go ahead and continue. Authentication or proving your identity can be achieved through one of the following. or a combination of the two. One, something you know, such as a password or PIN code. Number two, something you have, such as a SIM card, RFID card, and USB dongle. Number three, something you are, such as fingerprints and iris scan. All right, so let's see here. This task will focus on attacks against passwords, i.e., something that targets something you know, right? If you revisit the communication with several previous servers using protocols such as Telnet, SSH, POP3, and IMAP, we always need a password to gain access. Based on the 150 million usernames and password leaked from the Adobe breach in 2013, the top 10 passwords are the following here. You can see them here: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 5, 7, 8, password, yada, yada, yada. Only 2 passwords are related to Adobe and its products, but the rest are generic. You might think that this has changed over the past decade. However, these following passwords here are still common choices for many users. Others haven't realized yet that QWERTY is not secret and it is used by many as their password. Attacks against passwords are usually carried out by 1, password guessing, 2, dictionary attack, and brute force attack. Let's focus on dictionary attacks. Over time, hackers have compiled list after lists containing leaked passwords from data breaches. One example is RockU's list of breach passwords, which you can find on the attack box this following directory here. The choice of the word list should depend on your knowledge of the target system. For instance, a French user might use a French word instead of an English one. Consequently, a French word list might be more promising. We want an automated way to try the common passwords or the entries from a list. Here comes THC Hydra. Hydra supports many protocols, including FTP, POP3, IMAP, SMTP, SSH, and all methods related to HTTP. The general command line syntax is the following here: Hydra-L, username-P for wordlist.txt, server service, where we specify the following options here: -L username. -L should precede the username, i.e., the login name of the target. -capital P word list. -capital P precedes the wordlist.txt file, which is a text file containing the list of passwords you want to try with the provided username. Server is the host name or IP address of the target system. Service indicates the service which you are trying to launch the dictionary attack. Consider the following concrete examples here. This one is targeting the login mark, right, using this RockU password file, and it's targeting this FTP service. The next one here is a different iteration of it. It looks like, yeah, FTP, same thing here. And then this last one is targeting SSH with the user Frank. And it says there are some extra optional arguments that you can add. So -s port to specify non-default port for the service in question, -capital V or dash lowercase v, capital V for verbose makes Hydra show the username and password combinations that are being tried. This verbosity is very convenient to see the progress, especially if you are not confident of your command line syntax. -T, and where n is the number of parallel connections to the target. -T16 will create 16 threads used to connect to the target. -d for debugging to get more detailed information about what's going on. The debugging output can save you much frustration. For instance, if Hydra tries to connect to a closed port and timing out, -D will reveal this right away. Once the password is found, you can use Control-C to end the process. In TryHackMe task, we expect any attack to finish within less than 5 minutes. However, the attack would usually take longer in real life scenarios. Options for verbosity or debugging can be pretty helpful if you want Hydra to update you about its progress. In summary, attacks against login systems can be carried out efficiently using a tool such as THC Hydra combined with a suitable word list. Mitigation against such attacks can be sophisticated and depends on the target system. A few of the approaches include the following here: password policy enforces minimum complexity constraints on the password set by the user. Account lockout locks the account after a certain number of failed attempts. Throttling authentication attempts delays the response to a login attempt. A couple of seconds of delay is tolerable for someone who knows the password, but they can severely hinder automated tools. Using CAPTCHAs, requiring the use of public certificate for authentication. That's what you should be using for SSH, by the way. Very important here. Two-factor authentication or multi-factor authentication should be in place on your logins, of course. And there are many other approaches that are more sophisticated or might require some established knowledge about the user, such as IP-based geolocation. Since using a combination of the above approaches is an excellent approach to protect against password attacks. All right, so question time. We learned that one of the email accounts is lazy. What is the password used to access IMAP service on 10.10.154.48? All right, so let's see what we can do here. I'm going to go ahead and X out of here and clear all this stuff out like so. Now, once define lazy, right, for IMAP. And if we go back up here, we can probably just copy and paste some of the stuff over. Let me try this here, and let's see what they have for us. Okay, so I don't know how long this is going to take to finish, so we'll come back to the video. As we can see here, this actually went pretty quick, and we have found the password. Right, login is lazy, and the password is butterfly. Very strong password, by the way. And as you can see, I didn't put those extra options in here, but if you wanted to, you can try those extra options. Like, if, let's say you wanted to see the verbosity, so just do -VV, and it should start showing up over here. There we go. So let's continue on to task number 7, the summary, and then close out this video. This room covered various protocols, their usage, and how they work under the hood. 3 common attacks are the following. Number 1, sniffing attack. Number 2, minimum attack. Number 3, password attack. For each of the above, we focused both on the attack details and the mitigation steps. Many other attacks can be conducted against specific servers and protocols. We will provide a list of some related modules. They got vulnerability research, Metasploit, and Burp Suite. It is a good reminder to the default. It is good to remember the default port number for common protocols. For convenience, these services we covered are listed in the following table, sorted by alphabetical order. So you can read through this and memorize this if you choose to do that. Get familiar with these protocols and the ports they run on, applications, data security stuff. All right. Hydra remains a very efficient tool that can launch from the terminal. To try the different passwords, we summarize the main options in the following table here and read through this as well. So we already went over this earlier. -L is the username, -P is the word list, server, service, etc., etc. And that wraps up this video. So we're going to continue to the final room in the next video, it looks like. But anyway, if you're new here and you're enjoying the video, be sure to hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, comment below your thoughts and opinions. As always, thank you all for taking the time to watch my video. Have a nice day, and I will see you later.